Welcome back to the show. I'm Jenny McCarthy Wahlberg. That amazing audio you just heard was a video that went viral by this amazing activist named Kimberly Jones. She said that her powerful, eye-opening speech about the plight of Black people in America came from feeling broken and hopeless, but says this is exactly what everyone needs to hear. Yep. She's right. The activist is joining us right now. Kimberly Jones, I am honored to have you on our show.
No, this is so exciting for me. I love you guys.
Well, we admire you so much, and I know that just before we started, you said you were a fan of Donnie's. You're a crush, a childhood crush.
Don't make me cry.
Yeah, I'm a Gen Xer. I think universally, all female Gen Xers had a crush on Donnie Wahlberg.
Oh,
it's like a law.
No, you. I'm blushing. I'm totally blushing.
You chose correctly.
Thank you. Well,
you are legit on my wall, like up on my wall.
Oh. Well, I will say with the same respect, I have a crush on you now too. So thank you. Your voice and your words and your truth and your power, just amazing. So thank you.
I know I have the chills right now. Yeah. Literally every time I think of you, think of your words, I sit and just feel it. I sit and feel it and talk about it with my friends, because listening to you, I'm sad to say this, I learned more from your video than they taught me in school. How crazy and fucked up is that?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. The amount of people who have DM'd me or emailed me or texted me that said I had never heard about the Tulsa massacre. I had never heard about the Rosewood massacre. It's like crazy to me. And like Tulsa, and specifically, was the first time in history that napalm was dropped on American soil. So the fact that like it's not even part of the history books, not even the part of the conversation, you can't help but to think that that's, it's by design. It's intentional that it's left out of the history books.
Of course. And hopefully people are doing what I did, which said, I didn't know about that. And I immediately Googled it. I immediately educated myself and went, holy shit, how did we not learn about this?
Yeah. And the interesting part is that, not to the degree of what happened in the Tulsa massacre, that was probably the most deadliest, brutal, bloody of them all. But there are instances, like I've been researching it now more even myself, and I'm already up to 29 similar instances like that. There was one in Florida. There was one in Nova Scotia. I mean, like I can't even name them all.
How do we get them into school books? How do we change a lot about what these kids learn in school? How do we activate that?
Well, I think the first step is like we all have this power, right, that we don't even think about. I think about the messages I get from people. It's from all over the world. It's from Australia, New Zealand, and Israel, and all these places. Like, I saw your video. So now we live in this digital global world where we can communicate with each other by posting a video like that at the drop of a dime. So it's like, I'm hoping that what people are gathering from people like me and Sonia and Layla Assad and other people who have had these like viral informative videos during this time is that you have access to the world, which means you have far more power than you realize. If we all collectively chose a company that, like, I don't know, make textbooks in school and say, you need to either put this in the books or we're going to make sure that my school district is no longer purchasing school books from you, they'd have to change it. They'd have to update it. And I think that we've had like this very passive activism up until this point, but we see that that's not causing change. So we have to have more organized, proactive, we have to have activity that's actually actionable items and not just a lot of lip service. Like, the most powerful people in the world who run everybody is moms. So if a group of moms said either change the textbooks or don't get the money from our school district, they would change it.
That's right. That's right. It's collectively coming together.
Yeah.
I want to plug your book too. Her book is I'm Not Dying with You Tonight. It's available at kimjoneswrites.com. Tell us about this book so I can have people order it right now.
The interesting thing is, like, now I'm almost like the book is like prophecy, because it came out about a year ago. It's co-authored with one of my dearest friends, Gilly Siegel. And it is the story of two 17-year-old girls, one Black and one white, who survived the night in race riots in Atlanta. And the book is told in a dual narrative, so it kind of leapfrogs. So the two main characters are Lena, who's Black, which I predominantly wrote, and then Campbell, who's white, who my friend Geely, who's white, predominantly wrote. And so you'll get a chapter from Lena, and then you'll get a chapter from Campbell, and you get to see how differently they see the same night, but the similarities between how they see the same night, because they're female, right? And there's this omnipresent threat to the female form, and how it's that brings them together, and they survive the night together.
Wow, I have the chills again. That needs to be made into a movie.
We're working on it.
Oh, good. I'm like, that's a film right there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to say, like you mentioned that people have been reaching out to you around the world. There's still so much to be done, but did you feel a shift? Do you feel that there's these closed minds starting to crack open? Is there a little light that's happening?
The interesting part is like some of the best, I don't get to read all of my fan mail, but they try to send me the ones that are like really juicy. And some of the ones that I've been getting are people saying, I have been trying to have a conversation with a parent about racism for a very long time, because they still have these like these ideals and these systems in their mind. And I have not been able to crack my 70-year-old father until I showed him your video. One man said, my 70-year-old father sat in his chair and cried for 10 minutes after watching your video. And this is the first time he and I had a conversation about race where I feel like there was a breakthrough. And so I'm hoping that that's what is happening, because, I mean, as we all know, growth comes from discomfort. And that's part of what is happening is people, it's not surprising to me that this movement has exploded the way that it has on the back of a pandemic, when people are at home and having to actually like grapple with their feelings about these things and not just click past and scroll through.
That's right. Or numb themselves past it. You know, they have that stillness.
Yeah, it really is, because so many times this has happened. This has happened so many times, and every time people feel it. We all feel it, and then slowly people get back to work, they get back to every day, they get back to the movies and TV and all this stuff, and it just doesn't change. And one of the things that I love about your message, and that I try to explain to people, like I sat down with a 70-year-old white friend of mine and said, because he was like, he texted me during like when the looting was happening and stuff, and he was like, "How you doing?" And I was like, this means he wants me to ask him how he's doing. And I knew he was struggling.
Right.
And the way I framed it to him, and I think it's important, one of the messages we're stressing on the show is like, white people, talk to your white friends, talk to your white family, talk to people, like have these conversations too. Because I can't tell you what you already know. You've been experiencing. What am I going to tell you? It's like I'm preaching to the choir, right? But one of the things that I love about your message, and the message that I tried to say is, the reaction, the looting and the rioting and the protesting, 3 different things. But that's a reaction to the action of George Floyd's death, which keeps happening because of the inaction of our country and our government to change this, to heal 400 years of systemic racism and change it. Like, it's amazing how many people don't really process it that way, and just, it becomes a tit for tat. Well, I agree it was horrible, that man was murdered, but there shouldn't be rioting. It's like, hello, this is a reaction to an action that's allowed to happen because of our country's inaction.
Yeah.
And this is the time for a new action, right?
Exactly. And my dear friend Geely, who is my co-author, and I'm Not Dying With You Tonight, I was talking to her on the phone about it the other day, and she was saying that one of the things that she keeps telling people is, racism is not a Black problem that someone needs to empathize with. It's a white problem that the white community needs to work on fixing, right? So you need to be having these conversations. You need to be having these interpersonal conversations. And it's okay to look to people who are, giving the tools. Now, don't just ask your, Black neighbor to like, what should I do kind of thing. But that's why it's important to have a diverse friend group, people where you have a brave space. I don't like the term safe space, because that also means you're not having the hard conversations. You need to create a brave space with friends that you have, and be having these conversations, or looking for directives to people who have like said, okay, this is my mission. I have these conversations. There are people like me and Layla Assad and different people who, Baratunde, who like we write books and we have these platforms where this is what we do. It's like, okay, these are the steps, everybody. This is what you need to be doing.
Right.
And so you need to be looking to that to get this information. And as one of my other dear friends say, you got the same Google I got. It's not going to hurt you to do some research and start digging into the past and the history and like learning what you can learn and picking up some information and sharing it with your community, because having these conversations in your community with people who have a similar perspective is going to give you have more insight on how to break through that wall and have these conversations and make sure that, we're pushing the needle on what needs to be happening. Because Black people have been trying to grapple with racism for a very long time and hitting a wall, because at the end of the day, if this is your oppressor and you're like, talk to me and nothing is moving, no matter what you're doing over here, change isn't going to come.
God, that's so well said. I'm talking to Kimberly Jones. Again, her book, I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. It's available at her website, kimjoneswrites.com. Let's talk about kids, because we've had numerous conversations with our kids, especially during this time. And it's been a next level, of course, of conversation as we bring in more information and hear tools and read tools and, talk about the way, our belief systems, which we feel are healthy, but we want to make sure still, we ask ourselves, am I doing it right? Am I doing enough? And is there something that you can tell us about talking to our young children?
Well, first of all, that you're doing it at all is a change and a shift in America, right? So like before that, we grew up in the era of time where it was like, we all thought that color blindness was the right act, right? We're all going to pretend like we don't see what's going on and that we all get along and it's all an even playing field now. And so now we can all just go about our daily lives. And that was problematic. And that's partially how we got to this point that we're at right now. But now that people are actually like having the conversation, that's a huge step. The other thing is literature has been, a beautiful tool that people could use to have difficult conversations for a very long time. And there's a lot of great kid lit that's out there that it's designed to help with these conversations. There's a brilliant nonprofit organization, we need diversebooks.org, who all they focus on is kid lit of novels and picture books from 2-year-olds on all the way up to teenagers that are written by marginalized people from the LGBTQIA community, people of color, female writers. And so you can go to we need diversebooks.org and there's a plethora of books that you could use to have entrance into these conversations with your kids. And they are own voices books. So they're written by people who are representing the story that are in the book. So if it's Black story, it's a Black writer. If it's a trans story, it's a trans writer.
Love it.
And I mean, all the way down to beautiful picture books like Hands Up, which helps you have conversations with children as young as 3 or 4 about what's happening with community organizing and protesting in the streets. So that's a great resource. And the other thing that people are going to have to do is we need to change the canon of books that are in our schools, and not just the textbooks, but what are in the library. And that's not to say that we don't need the classics, because we need those too, but we need to diversify the stories so that kids of color and queer kids are seeing themselves on the pages, and that we're putting those hands also in the hands of kids who that's not their experience, so that we can nurture empathy. And literature is a great portal for that.
Yep.
It really is. And how did you come up with the Monopoly analogy? Was that on the fly, or is that something that you've thought about and formed, or was it just channeling source?
It's a little bit of both. There's an amazing nonprofit organization called the Girls Who Brunch Tour, who assist girls who are in foster care and who are at risk between the ages of 7 and 18, and they get these free workshops and everything. And so every year I would teach this workshop to the girls about economics and finances, and I would use the game of Monopoly to teach it to the kids. And so one day I was teaching it to the kids, and a girl got skipped. It was like supposed to be her turn, and it wasn't her turn. And it was like after that turn got skipped, it was just like the worst game of Monopoly for her. She just could not catch up. She was like behind all the other kids who were playing, and she was just so frustrated. And she just kept saying, "But Miss Kim, can I have 2 turns in a row? Because it's not fair, because that skipped turned, like made it so that I couldn't get some stuff that I was supposed to get. And now everybody's catching up. And it just like dawned on me, like, that is what it has been like to be Black in America. Like you were skipped all these turns, and now people are like, well, I mean, it's on you, catch up. And it's like, but you've built wealth for a generational wealth for I don't know how long. And so I hadn't thought about it to the degree in which I said it that day. So, but it was something that was in the back of my mind. And so I was in such a heightened emotional state that day that I guess the ancestors were like talking through me or something. It just like really poured on out. And, there's so many layers to it. Obviously that's a 6-minute clip. There's only so much that I'm going to be able to say, but it's like, just even if you look at generational wealth, then you have to look at the economic generational debt that we've acquired. I mean, there are companies, I won't name any name, but there are companies who are still making money today, and their initial money was made during the slave trade. And now they're over 100 years later with this company, and they still have members of that family sitting on the board, still part of a wealth system that was built with all of the free labor that they received from slaves during that time. And it's like, if you can look at the generational wealth, then you got to know that there's a generational debt to the people who were the servants.
100%. When I watched the video, I was crying, going like, fuck, man, everyone. And I mean, everyone needs to watch this, because that analogy, it for some reason visually helped me understand even more. I mean, I was aware, but the next layer is like, okay, you made money, now give it to me. Okay, you got a house, but give it to me. It's like, wait a minute. When you were yelling, we've nothing. It's like, well, fuck, you're right. Because everyone, they fucking took it and didn't give you the opportunity.
Yeah. And it's hard, and people feel like it's so far removed, and so they're like, why are we still having this conversation? There's these conversations are from times that happened so long ago, but the effects of them are not that far
Absolutely.
removed.
Absolutely. I think that's the part that people miss. It's like hundreds of years of systemic oppression, of systematically dismantling Black families. Yeah. Like, where was the help trying to rebuild them? It's like catch up. Let that term catch up is so on point, because it's like, there was another video somebody did a while ago about, like, there was a bunch of people starting a race and they let everyone get a head start, and they were like, all right, catch up. And it was like the white people were already at the finish line from all the different privileges they had. They were at the finish line when the race started, and the two Black guys couldn't even start running. The race was over. It's like, it's not another time. I mean, the damage is here. The damage is here. The damage of years of unrepaired, we haven't repaired everything. People say reparations. The key part of that word is repair. We haven't repaired the damage, and it's just piling, and we keep band-aiding everything, and it's coming to a head right now, and it really, something has to change. And I think your words were so eloquent, and your passion was so authentic, and it's everywhere. It's that kind of passion and important words. And finally, it seems like people are listening. I don't know, I mean, I can't believe what we discovered today, with Rayshard Brooks. It's like, it keeps happening. So you're right. It's not from a bygone day. It's happening right now.
Yeah. And it's like, and the way that people have been like able to justify away these situations is like absolutely ridiculous. Like I grew up in a multiracial family. My father, it was biracial. So, my grandmother was white. So I have lots of drunken white uncles who have done far worse drunken things than what Rayshard Brooks did the other night. Right. Like I've seen my uncles get drunk and like punch a cop, and I'm not even kidding. And like there was the reaction was not the same. And so that's what what people aren't recognizing is the implicit bias that allows you to react to people in a very different way based on, unwarranted fears and feelings that you have about them. There was this really horrific video that went around a couple weeks ago showing a bunch of kids in the 1970s, a bunch of Black kids like riding on their bikes, and they rode into this white neighborhood, and the white kids in that neighborhood started to like spit on them and throw rocks at them. And then so the kids like ride away, and then these kids are standing there like mortified, talking about like how they were treated in that neighborhood. And this is like, I think the video was like 1971, right? So what I say to people is those kids who were throwing rocks and spitting on those kids, this is 1971, which means those kids are the kids who are doing the spitting. They're now CEOs. They're now cops. They're now congressmen. They're now senators. And so that thought process that you think is like gone, it's still in the heart and it's still under the surface and it's still informing how they interact with people in this world.
Right. It's the belief systems that were implanted from each generation. And that's why it's up to us. It's up to us. You talk about, okay.
And the young people are doing it. You know, they're
young people are better than us.
They're stepping up. You know, they got so much flack. These kids, you know, 18. I don't know what generations. I don't know all the generations, but they got so much flack. They're stepping up so big right now and putting themselves out there and organizing rallies. And I mean, it's in protests. I mean, it's amazing, you know, for all of the,
it gives me hope.
All the lazy or whatever everyone said about these young kids these days, they're doing it.
They are.
They really are.
Oh, yeah.
Kimberly Jones.
These are not allies. They're accomplices. And that's very different.
Well said. I love you, Kimberly Jones.
I love you guys, and I love you so much, Don.
Thank you. Don't make me blush anymore.
You have a platform here to speak whenever you want. So whenever you want to call, you just call, okay? I would love to have you on my show again. You guys get her book, I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. It's available at kimjoneswrites.com. Love you so much, Kimberly.
Love you guys. Thank you for having me.
So much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
for blessing us with your time.
All right, guys, we'll be right back.